One Bad Tarot Reader is brought to you in part by Patreon. Thank you to my patrons on Diary of a Mystic Patreon. Hi everyone, it's Diary of a Mystic. Welcome to One Bad Tarot Reader Podcast 5. Podcast Cinco. No way. Really? Huh. Here we are, Podcast 5. How is everybody? Thank you so much for those that tune in and listen to One Bad Tarot Reader. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the comments that you guys leave as well. So what are we going to talk about on this podcast? Well, I'm recording this during a thunderstorm. So it's probably not the smartest idea. Whatever, let's live a little. We're having a thunderstorm. So if there's thunder and a tree falls on the roof, hopefully that won't happen. But anyway, here we are, One Bad Tarot Reader. One Bad Tarot Reader podcast Cinco in a thunderstorm. How appropriate. So I wanted to talk about, and someone left a question in the comments in my community tab, asked if anybody wanted to ask me anything. You guys are welcome. If you want me to ask a question in the next podcast or answer anything for you, I'll give you a little shout out and answer your question, but I'll do that towards the end of the podcast. But I did get one person who was kind enough to do that. So I wanted to speak about what it takes to stay consistent with your readings as a tarot reader. And what I mean by that is, if you feel that you're gifted in any way, whether you're psychic, whether you have mediumship capabilities, whether you perform tarot readings, do other types of readings, whatever it is, you are gifted. And many times life will prevent you from believing in yourself or staying the course or believing in your dream. And what I mean by that is, doing this type of work is not, I don't feel that anyone seeks this out. I've always said, I always felt that people that have a gift of psychic abilities, empath abilities, mediumship capabilities, clairvoyant, clairaudient, whatever your gift is directly a gift from God, from divine source. And I don't believe people seek this out. And to publicly do it or go public with it is very hard. And it can still be challenging even if you've been doing it for quite some time. Okay? Whether you're beginning, whether you've been an intermediate, meaning you've done it for quite some time, whether you're a master at something, you still come up against not only outside influences, but you also come up against your own inner critic, okay? And I often attune tarot readers in particular, or spiritual readers or spiritual practitioners live in a duality. They live in two different worlds. They live in the physical world and they live in the spiritual world. And deciding to uh, take on or to be a reader, you ultimately are living in two different worlds. The spiritual world can also be akin to the spirit world. Okay. And also to remember that not everyone is going to understand what you do. And they're also not going to understand what you do because they can't physically see it. So, because they can't physically see it, it's not logical. Okay. And this can come from your family. This can come from friends. This can come from strangers. This can come from outside people. But readers in particular, or being a reader, or doing this for a hobby, or even for professional means, comes with a lot of responsibility. And it also comes with always feeling like you're paddling upstream. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. And so dare to dream. So choosing this to do your life's work, your life's purpose, I feel that you don't necessarily seek it out. I feel like you are chosen to do this because you ultimately are a vessel, or you're the messenger through a spiritual passage, okay? Or a vehicle as a messenger through spirit, okay? And so, because I created Diary of a Mystic, a lot of new people have found me through Diary of a Mystic on YouTube. And many people are surprised that I've been on YouTube. I know you guys have heard this a million times, but I've done YouTube for several years. And with that, I've also built up my spiritual practice for the last several years. And it's hard work. It's dedication, it's discipline. You start to change, you start to evolve, okay? And I have moments where I think to myself, how long am I going to be doing this? How many years am I going to be doing this? I have moments where, let's say, for instance, I had a reading recently with a client, a new client who I had never uh, read for before. And the funny thing is, when you're a reader and a client comes to you, I know personally, you can really pick up on their energy, obviously, but you can also pick up on a sense of them blocking you, okay? They're blocking their energy. They're ultimately trying to block themselves off from you energetically, like a screen. So you can't read for them, or they don't want you to read for them. They're kind of playing a little game. And I came up against that. And I immediately knew, I already knew before I even sat down, prepared, and read for the person, I could tell that they were, let me see what you can do kind of attitude. Show me what you can do. Let me see what you can do. Prove to me that you have a gift. I want to see what you can do. And so later I found out that this person was kind of in the same genre of the type of work that I do. Um, and I think that they just were curious and wanted to see what I could do. Now, that would be almost as if you take a writing class, but you're Stephen King and you know that you're a good writer, But you go to this writing class to see what kind of teacher is teaching the class. Okay? Just to see what they can do. Even though that you're Stephen King, I'm just going to see what they can do. And so you come up against things like that. Okay? It's kind of like a seasoned mechanic would take their car in to another mechanic's garage just to see what the mechanic could do. And that kind of stuff will happen. And it's almost like catfishing in the psychic world. It's kind of like catfishing in the psychic world. Now, in this day and age, when you do readings for people, especially online, even when you're doing true crime readings, people are like, well, that's just something she could have pulled up on Google. No, no. Clients may also be suspicious of that as well. I don't even go there, Vita, okay? And I also don't ask for birth dates in my readings. There's certain things that I don't do, and I also specify, please do not give me too much background information or your story so it doesn't somehow interfere or lead the way for your reading. Okay. I'm very a stickler about that. Don't give me too much. I don't want too much. So when you're doing a reading for someone or for the general public, people want to see what you can do. Okay, so there is that sense of pressure in terms of being, I call it a psychic show pony. I've talked about this before. People want to see you perform. Okay, they want a psychic show pony. And people also don't believe you. Okay, and I'm talking about not just general public people leaving comments and trolling your channel. I'm talking about people that come to you, all right, to book a reading. So there's this thing that people will do that they will put up this energy block, all right, or they will be very tight-lipped in the reading. So there's this energy exchange that's going on, and at the same time, there's like driving the psychic show pony, and you keep applying the brake. And so it wants to flow, but it's being stopped. It wants to flow, but it's being stopped. And it's all coming from the client. So in actuality, what's going on is, and the reader can pick up on it or sense it, what's going on is they're essentially thwarting the reading. They're doing it in a sense that it's not helping them at all. Okay. Also, this screen that people will put up between themselves and you is also to try to protect themselves in some way. All right. And when you sit down and do a reading with someone, or even if you're doing spiritual work for someone, it's a very intimate exchange. And you will receive very personal, intimate details about a person's life, situation, and sometimes they don't want to acknowledge that. Okay, so a reading can go very deep. All right, and sometimes they don't want to acknowledge it. Many times I'll get emails afterwards saying, I didn't want to say anything, but you were right about this. And yes, it's something that I need to work on or identify or accept or deal with, or I was embarrassed about it or something like that. I love to see, and I think the best place for readers to really get support from other readers is on Instagram. And of course, now we have social media to market ourselves, promote ourselves, put ourselves out there. So you have, of course, which you didn't have 15 years ago, which is YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You have all these things, which is awesome. The best place to meet very supportive people is on Instagram. YouTube, I've met probably 2 or 3 people on YouTube that have been supportive. On Instagram, I've met several. And even people that are on Instagram that have YouTube, very supportive. Primarily the ones on Instagram, I don't know what it is about Instagram, but people are very supportive of each other. YouTube's kind of like, a battlefield sometimes for some reason. So my point is, as a reader, and you will find readers sometimes bring up or make posts about, things that they will and they won't read for. And so over time, I learned from experience that people will ask you questions that, number one, there's no way in hell you can answer it for them because you're not God, okay? Number two, if you were God, you wouldn't be doing this. And number three, many readers have ethics, okay? They have terms and ethics and terms and conditions, which is very important. And so I love to see the readers that basically straight up are like, I'm not going to do this for you. And I'm going to tell you why. They don't sugarcoat anything. Now, there's a fine line between being blunt and giving the person truth and then sugarcoating something. And so, trusting yourself, okay, and trusting the message that you're delivering, sometimes your inner critic will doubt itself as a reader. Should I say this or shouldn't I say this? You know what I mean? And it's not even like your inner critic, it's just your inner self. Uh, this is kind of sensitive. And so, especially if you're doing a live reading with someone, many times I will breach or approach the subject as it's very delicate, but, you know, this is what I'm seeing. And you have to be very careful. I think people sometimes, when they try to throw up a screen to block their energy, or they don't want to address something, or they pretend like, oh, yeah, yeah, everything's fine there, everything's fine, when you are seeing in the reading that it's not. Well, I'm seeing in the reading there's something else going on, okay? So you kind of have to really trust yourself as a reader to parlay that information to someone. And you might get validation for it, you might not. And so I feel like the way that you receive information, each reader is different. And many times, if I sit down and have a reading with someone, I always ask them, have you ever had a reading before with anyone? Many times, it's yes, many times it's no. And I always explain to them, well, this is the type of reader I am, because every reader is different. And so I had this client recently who was putting up a screen to block me. And then it kind of became where I just felt it. I felt what was happening. And so at the same time, this energy flow is trying to flow, and then it's being break. There's a break put on it. So I'm on the psychic show pony. I'm galloping along, okay, because that's what they were wanting. I could sense it, But I was also grounding myself and saying to myself, I don't need to do this. And at the same time, they were blocking me. Okay. And when you get a reading, you go into a reading with the sense of what are we going to accomplish today? Or what is it that you want to get out of your reading? Or what is it that you want to accomplish from this reading? And so the psychic show pony, and then the feeling of drive through psychic, and I've talked about that before. They're in their car, they've gassed up, they're going through the drive through, they want to hear what they want to hear, and then boom, they're gone. Okay. The psychic show pony, kind of the same thing. Okay, except that you're on stage for them, they're throwing dollar bills at you, and you're not picking them up fast enough. Okay, so maybe there's a psychic stripper. I don't know. I haven't come up with anything with that yet. But it's kind of like it gives you a sense of, you know, it feels like you have to perform and it feels like you have to prove yourself to people. And there's nothing to prove to anybody. If you trust what your gift is and you know that you're gifted because you will know from the people, from the validations from other people who have had readings from you. You will know. You also know by the track record that you have with people. Now, sometimes you cannot connect with a certain person. And so that was the case for me. Even though I connected big time. The reading itself took an angle that I was kind of worried about from the beginning because I knew they wanted a psychic show pony and I knew they were in the drive-through psychic window with me. And those are the types of readings that I don't like. The types of readings that I do like is where I connect with the person and we get down to the root of something to improve or to improve the betterment of their situation or their life. It can be a healing moment, it can be an aha moment, it can be the start of something totally brand new for them that gives them the get go to giddy up and go. Okay? It can also give them healing to move on. It can also give them the validation they're seeking of, yes, okay, this is what I've been wanting to do. This is my answer. It's been validated. Now, I felt that that was the validation the person was seeking, but I also felt at the same time that they wanted me to perform. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. But as a reader, you can't fool your reader because your reader will pick up on it. They will sense it, 1,000 miles away that, okay, I'm getting a feeling. They're sensing your energy. They can pick up on your energy. All right. And when it comes to your inner critic or when it comes to people outside that are critical of what you do or critical of your work or they don't believe in what you do or they don't believe that you actually can do this for a living, that can be very challenging. And so, unfortunately, you have to have, and I hate this term, but you have to have a thick skin. And I've talked about that before about being on YouTube to have a thick skin, but I'm talking in general. You have to have a really thick skin because there will be believers, there will be non believers, there will be critics, there will, there will also be your own inner critic. I'm a perfectionist, so I want to make sure that my delivery or my presentation is the best of my ability, okay? And so if I don't feel that the reading was the best of my abilities or that I was being blocked during the reading, I get very upset about it. That's just me because I have this competitive perfectionist thing about myself. It's probably my Capricorn moon. I don't know. But I like things to flow naturally and also be cooperative and also be very organized in its delivery. Okay. And so it's not like it's every day that you come up against this, but you do come up against it. And so, what's the best way to handle it? I think the best way to handle it is to be very honest with yourself as well as be very honest with the person you're reading for. Hey, look, I'm sensing that there's some blockage here. Um, I'm also sensing that you're kind of wanting me to, put on dinner and a show for you. That's not what I do. I want to make the best of my time as well as for you. Yada yada yada. What exactly are you wanting to get out of your reading? And it's okay to ask that. It's the same thing you would do if you went to the dentist, you know, or you went to the hairstylist, or you went to get your nails done. I mean, what is exactly that you want to do? What do you want to get out of this session with somebody, right? So that happens. And it can also depend upon sometimes, tarot readers, psychics, mediums, they're human. They're only human. Uh, we have families, we have lives, we have, dishes to wash, laundry to do, toilets to scrub. I mean, we got a family, we have things going on in our lives. So we're not always um, perhaps in the best frame of mind sometimes, but I think it's important for readers to remember that you have to take care of yourself. And so many readers don't do back to back readings because it's mentally exhausting, it's mentally draining. When I come on and do live readings on YouTube and do like live chat readings, it's exhausting when I'm done, back to back readings. It's fun, but it's exhausting because it does wear you out. It absolutely wears you out, which is okay. But you have to like watch your boundaries. So, anyway, let me find this question. This someone had put on my community tab when I asked if anybody wanted me to ask anything. Um, let's see. This is from Carollittle. She says, "Hi, I would like to know what inspired you to start reading tarot and how long have you been reading? Do you go based on your intuition or the card meanings? Thank you." Thank you, Carol, for your question. So, what inspired me to start reading tarot? Well, actually, it's kind of a funny story. I'd always been interested in astrology. When I was little, I was always interested in paranormal stuff. I was always in the occult section at the library from an early age, but I didn't see or pick up my first pack of tarot cards until I was about 19, 20 years old. And someone had left a pack of tarot cards at a family member's house, and I saw them. And I said, "Whose are these?" And they said, "Oh, so and so left them. They forgot to take them with you. You know, they're not going to come back and get them. Do you want them?" And I was like, "Well, sure." And so I picked them up, and it came with like a little booklet. And this is pre-internet. This is pre YouTube, pre anything. So I just started to learn and teach myself and practice. I went to occult bookshops, metaphysical shops, bought books. You have to remember this is back in the day when there wasn't Amazon or anything like that. So I would go to shops that I knew in the area and buy books. I studied, I practiced, I studied, I practiced, and I read for myself. And then eventually I would read for my friends. But that's how it all happened for me. And I just became kind of obsessed. Um, do you go based on your intuition or the card meanings? The card meanings are very important to learn because the tarot itself is a very complex system of many different meanings, many different theories, symbolisms, etc. And the card meanings itself, there's 78 cards. You should have a good definition of what each card means or stands for, and your intuition will then start to go into drive. So the tarot itself will unlock your intuition. Okay? So I feel it's important for you to understand the meanings of the cards, but your intuition will unlock itself through reading the cards, if that makes any sense. Many people interpret the tarot many different ways. Many people will say the word tarot or tarot. I'd say both. When I say the tarot, that's kind of like the tarot girl. It's kind of like my Real Housewives of New York City way of saying it, or the tarot. Tarot. Um, so I think it's important to at least identify and know a basic meaning of each card. There's so much. There's so many books written about the cards themselves. It's quite extensive and it's never ending. It's never ending. I have books about the tarot. I pick them up sometimes and I learn something new. There's so much going on in each card. So the traditional Rider-Waite deck, that is, um, in terms of the basic meanings. Now, when I taught myself, my first deck of tarot cards I ever picked up was not Rider-Waite. I picked up the cards that I found at my family member's house. Uh, they were the Marseille deck, which is a French-based deck. They weren't Rider-Waite. They were the Marseille. The Marseille is a little different because the Marseille does not have, for instance, let's say the Three of Cups. It doesn't say on it Three of Cups. It will just have three cups on it. Okay. The Marseille deck is a little different, and there's a different way to read Marseille, but that's the deck that I first learned was from a Marseille deck. And I prefer Marseille deck. I still work with the Marseille deck, but uh, Tarot, Tarot uh, de Marseille. So now because we have so many different types of tarot decks on the market, and there's many different ways to read these different decks, I think you should go into reading tarot. Really, you should go into it understanding the basic meaning, but it unlocks your intuition. It totally unlocks your intuition. It will unlock many capabilities that you didn't think that you ever had before. So anyway, One Bad Tarot Reader podcast, Cinco. Uh, you know, dare to dream. If this is something that you want to do, you're going to have critics, you're going to have outer critics, you're going to have your own inner critic. You're also going to have moments that are kind of self-defeating, especially when you're jazzed about doing a reading with someone and they're blocking their energy from you. And you can sense it. You will know right off the bat. You may even know it right before you sit down to speak to that person. Spirit has a way of showing you signs prior to readings with people, and pay attention to those signs because oftentimes they're meant to help you. And also, it's very important to protect yourself. To protect yourself spiritually, mentally, verbally, physically, karmically, psychically, before each reading, before, during, and after each reading. Because that person's energy, that energy exchange, you don't want an energy attachment to you. Especially if the reading was negative or if that person was, being a little bit of a, a, a little pompous jerk. Not that every client is. I have wonderful clients, but there's 1 in 100 that can be a little testy or a little like, girl, you better perform. So you just want to protect yourself from that so you can move on, you know. Many times I'll give readings and I won't remember much of what I had said because it just comes out. It's not something that I can reflect and look back on. And many times I'll give readings and I'll think about, oh, wow, I should have told this person that. And then I'll follow up with them, oh, by the way, you know, because so much information comes out. And sometimes I'll see comments on YouTube like, how come psychics and mediums always repeat themselves? Always repeat themselves. We're repeating ourselves because the information comes so quickly sometimes that you have to repeat. And you repeat it not to the audience, you're repeating it to yourself because you're ultimately putting together a thread of information. And it's like counting a stitch. If you're sitting there knitting or crocheting, you're paying attention to how many stitches or loops you've made with your crochet hook. You know, it's very much like that. You have to really pay attention because you can get swallowed up with the information that's coming through. And half the time, the information that's coming through, you don't even know what the hell it means because you're the messenger. You're the messenger. Many times I'll get information. I won't know what it means, but it means something for the client. It means something to whom the message is for. So, thank you for listening. One Bad Tarot Reader podcast 5. I wish I had a drinko. The thunderstorm has passed. Hallelujah. And for the tarot readers out there that are listening, the mediums, the psychics, the ones that are just beginning to learn, dare to dream and keep dreaming and keep studying, keep practicing, and keep doing what you're doing. Okay? Because there's a lot of people out there that will support you and they will honor and they will appreciate what you do. So thank you so much for listening. This is Diary of a Mystic, One Bad Tarot Reader podcast 5. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Stay safe out there. Stay blessed. And I'll speak to you soon.